Influenza vaccine. Did you get your shot? Most employers and the media have been pushing to make sure that everyone gets their shot. I'm going to inform you a little bit about the influenza vaccine. I'm going to give you a little on the history, a little bit about what's in the vaccine, what type of viruses there are, and I have some fun data about influenza in our state. According to the University of Michigan, Thomas Francis Jr., he was a physician, a virologist, and an epidemiologist from the university, took part in a field study and evaluation to find a protective influenza vaccine. It was not until 1933 that the influenza virus, A virus, which causes almost every epidemic and pandemic, was isolated. 7 years later, in 1940, the B virus was isolated. And then finally in 1950, the C virus was isolated. That's all according to the Department of Health and Human Services. According to Billings 2005, the influenza pandemic of 1918 killed more people than the Great War, World War I. Somewhere between 20 and 40 million people died. It has been cited as the most devastating epidemic in recent world history. It killed more people in the 1 year than the 4 years that the Black Death bubonic plague did. In January 1976, an outbreak of respiratory disease occurred among soldiers returning to an Army base in Fort Dix, New Jersey. A novel virus, an H1N1, was identified as the cause for the epidemic that resulted in serological evidence of 230 cases and 1 death. That's according to Zimmer and Burke. Emergence of the swine influenza at Fort Dix led to the implementation of a mass vaccination of 40 million civilians. There are 3 types of viruses, A, B, and C. Combined, they represent responsible for producing 306 human influenza viruses. Only influenza A viruses are further classified by subtypes, and that is based on the 2 glycoproteins. Influenza viruses can change 2 ways, antigenic drift and antigenic shift. The B virus only goes by antigenic drift, which means it matures and changes. The A virus can change by antigenic drift and antigenic shift. When it changes by antigenic shift, it mutates by a reassortment of the genetic material and then drifts by maturing. So it makes it real difficult to pin that virus down. Influenza viruses, A viruses, can infect people, pigs, horses, and other animals, but wild birds are their natural host. The influenza B viruses are usually only found in humans, and the C virus only causes a slight illness and doesn't cause pandemics or epidemics. And that's according to Vimedic. Each year, the seasonal flu contains 3 influenza viruses. There's an A H3N2 and a H1N1, and 1 influenza B virus. Now this year they came out with a quadvalent vaccine, which has not only the A and then the seasonal A, it has 2 B viruses in it. And the reason they did that is because the B virus has been circulating back and forth, and they're having trouble determining whether it's circulating in our area. Easier to put both of them into the vaccine to cover everyone. According to the CDC, twice a year, the WHO, World Health Organization, organizes a consultation with the directors of the WHO collaborating centers and representatives of key national laboratories. They review the results of the surveillance of how the flu is going around in their area. They meet in with laboratories and clinics to see how much each strain is showing up in the area, and this is how they determine which strains they're going to put into the vaccine that year. After that, each individual country decides what they want to put in their vaccine, and in the United States, it's the Food and Drug Administration that decides what goes into our vaccines. According to Steckelberg, 2010, the genetic stability is important among bird flu viruses. It's very difficult with that antigenic shift and drift to pin down the A viruses, because in the bird flu virus, it can affect a pig, and then when that bird flu mixes with a pig flu, a swine flu, then you have a whole new genetic makeup, which makes it much more difficult to come up with a vaccine. Mingling those viruses adds the variety, and the more variety, the greater the chances some new combination of gene will cross into humans and become the next pandemic. In April 2009, a novel influenza A H1N1 virus emerged in the U.S. with the key characteristics of a pandemic virus. Within weeks, it had spread to every region in the country, according to Steele, Fisher, Blendon, Burkhardt, and Lovell. Early in the pandemic, when no vaccine was available, a majority of Americans just were quick to adapt two very basic principles: wash your hands and stay home from work. And that kept the numbers of that pandemic down greatly. There may be a silver lining to the 2009 H1N1 pandemic. People who got the virus and did well have now developed a super flu antibody. This antibody is attacking the stalk of the virus, which most of the flu vaccines are designed to attack the virus altogether. And because this is attacking the stalk, it has the ability to attack the stalk of many H1N1 strains. Locally in Ohio, between 2009 and 2013, the number of influenza-associated hospitalizations by county began to rose in 2009 and then dropped greatly. And then it began to rise again back into 2013. Now this is the Northeast Ohio, and I chose the Northeast Ohio and the Southwest Ohio as comparisons. And as you can see, from there to the Southwest Ohio, the numbers are about the same until we get to like 2013. The drop in numbers between the Southwest and the Northwest are most likely due to the weather. People are more indoors here, they're around people who could be ill, and they're in more confined areas. I also went with the difference between the years, showing this was the year of the pandemic and how greatly it dropped. This drop is most likely in people getting more people getting vaccinated because of the scare of the pandemic and taking those precautions of washing their hands and staying home when ill. So, in conclusion, we've gone a little bit over the history of the vaccine. We've learned a little bit about what's in the vaccine, the types of viruses that make up the vaccine, and some fun statistics of what goes on in our area. Are there any questions? Seriously.
The one guy who was the one doctor who was several different things, what type of doctor?
He's a virologist, epidemiologist, so he's studying the viruses, and he also worked with Jonas Salk, who came up with the polio virus, and so that's where they work together on that. And epidemiology is that study of study of disease within an area. And so that's what he has. You know, he has that study, and then the virology, which is the more around the virus end for that. Any other questions? All right, thank you.